Okay, Yagod Tavach everyone, and welcome. As we're sponsored by Shalom Fogelberg, Mishmas Yaakov Zev ben Yehuda Aryeh, Rivka Bas Yaakov Yosef, Tzidki Miriam Bas God, Yosef ben Sion ben Yaakov Zev, for Shalema for Moshe Aryeh ben Miriam, and for great Shidduch for Chayat Tzibya Bas Shoshana Gittel. We're sponsored by A.B. Spry. We're sponsored by Baruch Ian, Lili Nishmas Yaakov Chaim ben Abba, Esther Bas Yona, Avram ben Shmuel HaKain, for Shalema for Liba Bas Anya. We're sponsored for the spiritual, physical, and emotional protection of Yeshua Menachem Mendel, Ben Bela, Shendel Rivka. We're sponsored by Berish Gesseman, for Shalema for Shoshana Basadina Chana. We're sponsored by Mark Frankel, in loving memory of his father, Yisrael Tzvi ben Chaim Yeshua Falak. His neshama should have an aliyah. Again, I want to urge the Olam to utilize these days to try to get more people to join us for Menachos. It's such a tremendous privilege to be an ambassador of the Daf. If you get people to join, you don't take anything away from their Zechusim, but you get a piece of their Zechus every day they come to learn. It's such a wonderful thing to be a catalyst and to be mezaka somebody to start learning the Daf Yomi. Okay. We are holding on Daf Kuf Tez Zayin Amid Beis. Wow, Kuf Tez Zayin. That's a big Daf. Kuf Tez Zayin Amid Beis, and we're holding by Kochim Kalim, which is 10 lines from the bottom. So he said, Kochim Kalim necholin b'chol machane Yisrael. Kochim Kalim are eaten in the entire Israelite camp. So first the Gemara says something. Don't get too attached to it because the Gemara is not going to stay with this. Amar Avuna b'kol mekaymis Yisrael. That means simply wherever a Yid is, he could eat the Kachim Kalim, he could eat the Shlamim. Aval machana lo yahavi, but there was no camp in the Midbar. That's what the Gemara thinks. But Eisei Rav Nachman Rav Huna, o machana is b'Midbar lo yahavi. There were no camps in the Midbar. Vatanya learned in the Braisa. Kishem shemachne b'Midbar, just like there was a camp in the Midbar. Kach machne b'Yerushalayim. And what was the demarcation in Yerushalayim? How did that work? Yerushalayim l'Har Habayis, from the walls of the old city to the Temple Mount, that was the Machane Yisrael. Mehar Habayis, from the Temple Mount, l'Shar Nicanor, to the famous gates of Nicanor, the eastern gates, which started the Azara, was the Machane Leviyah. Mekan ve'elach, from then onward, Machane Shechina. Ve'hein hein, and the Machane Shechina were the Kloim Shebemidbar, those that were the curtains around the Mishkan. So you see that there were machnos in the Midbar. Ela ema b'chol makom machane Yisrael. It means that anywhere under the Anonei HaKavod, that was machane Yisrael. So the Gemara says, well, Pshita, isn't that obvious? Says the Gemara, no. I might think that if you have a Shlomim, and then we know that the Mishkan traveled. And when it traveled, they dismantled it. So Ma'od Desema, if Salu b'Yaitze, as soon as they dismantled the Mishkan, the Shlamim become puzzle, as if it was taken out, because they dismantled the Mishkan. So it's like the whole camp was dismantled. Says the Gemara, Kamash Malon. So the Gemara says, but maybe that is the way it is. Says the Gemara, Amakra v'nasa oyel mayid. Even when it traveled, it was still known as the oyel mayid. Afal pishin nasa, even when traveling, oyel mayidu. It still had the status of the oyel mayid. So it still maintained its machana configuration. Tani Reb Shimon Yochai Aimer, when talking about Eretz Yisrael, at the time of the Beis Hamikdash, the truth of the matter is, there, Yisrael Fisher, we are holding on Daf Kufteh Zayin Amid Beis, and we are holding 3 lines from the bottom of Kufteh Zayin Amid Beis. So Tanya, Reb Shimon Yochai Amar, Oida Acheres Haisa, there was another zone that had its own laws. And we'll be gairis over here like the Diktukei Seifrim, V'chil v'ezris nafshimi. It was the area of the Chil. The Chil was a very sensitive topic by the Goyim. That's why they made breaches in the Chil, because a Goy was not allowed to go beyond the Chil. The Chil was a small area, and then the Ezris Nashim, which had a special law that a Tful Yoim, that means somebody that touched the Sheretz, went to the mikveh but did not yet have nightfall, he was not allowed to go beyond the Chil. However, since it was only rabbinical, if he did do it, there would be no malchus. Now the Gemara says something again which you shouldn't get too attached to. In the Mishkan Shilai, we'll see that lasted for 369 years. It was a long time. The Mishkan Shilai only had 2 camps. So the Gemara says, which one was missing? Hey, minayu le'avi. Amar Rabba, mistaver de machana leviyah havi. There must have been a machana leviyah. Then we would have a problem, because the Tomei Mace was sent out of the Machna Shechina, and the Zav was sent out of the Machna Levi. They had to be sent out of 2 different camps. And if there was no Machna Levi, there would not be such a differentiation. The Yisrael Kedaitach Machna Levi Eloi Havi. Nimtzu, it would turn out Zovin Utmei Mesim Mishtalchen Chutz L'Machana Achas. Because if there's only a Machana Shechina and a Machana Yisrael, they would be both sent out one camp. But the Torah says that each one had its distinct camp. VaTorah Amru V'lo Yitamu Es Machanehem. They shouldn't contaminate their respective camps. Tein Machana L'Zeh, Machana L'Zeh. The Tmei Meis was sent out in the Machana Shechina, and the Zav was sent out in the Machana Leviyah, so there had to be a Machana Leviyah. Amalei Rava, so when you say that there's only 2 camps, what are you going to say? There was no Machana Yisrael? Elamai Machana Yisrael lehavi? That can't be. Because Nimtzu Zav and Mitzayim Nishtalchen L'Makom Echad. Then it would turn out that the Zav and the Mitzayim was sent out of only one camp, because if there was only a Machana Leviyah, so then the Zav was sent out of Machana Leviyah, and the Mitzayim was sent out of Machana Leviyah. But the Torah says that the Mitzayim had to be Boded Yeshiv, he had to be alone. They were Mishtachel Makom Echad, VaTorah Amar Boded Yeshiv, that the Mitzayim has to be in isolation. Shelo Yoshev Tamei Acher Imai. He's in a zone that there was no other Tamei, because he was sent out even of the Machane Yisrael. Ella, like I told you, don't get too attached to it. There were 3 camps. So what does it mean? What does it mean that there were only 2 camps? Says the Gemara Leklita. That means that in the Mishkan Shilai, the Levi section did not afford a place of refuge for the killer B'Shaygik. There were 48 cities of Levium, but the Machana Levia did not afford refuge. Says the Gemara Mechlal, that implies the B'midbar, that in the Midbar, have a klita Machana Levia, that the place of the Levi, in other words, the area where Moshe Rabbeinu lived around the Mishkan with the Leviim, that did afford refuge. Sigmar says yes, and there's a pasuk to back that up. Vatanya, Misamte l'cha makam, Samti l'cha makam, I will give you a place, b'chayecha. And we darshan that when it says that makam, it means mekaimcha. The makam is where you live. Asher yonu shama, where the killer could flee. Malamid shemigalin b'midbar. There is exile in the midbar. Leichan gailin l'machan levia, to the place of Moshe Rabbeinu's residence. Now, but the Levi already lives there. So how could it be called fleeing if he's already there? How could it be called exile? We can amru ben Levi shaharag, a ben Levi that kills someone, he doesn't have to leave his city, but just gailam mepelach lepelach. He could go from one district to another district. V'im galul lepilchai, and even if he goes in his own district just to another neighborhood, pilchai koltai, his own district also gives him refuge. Mikra, where do we have a reference to that? Amar Rav Acha b'rei Ravika ki be'ir miklata yoshev, in the city of his refuge. In other words, even if it's already his place, ir shekol tasa kvar, a place that he was already there, he could go from one neighborhood to another neighborhood. Now, Bo Gilgal, when they came to Gilgal, so we said that Bamais once again became allowed. In other words, in the Midbar we weren't able to have private altars. We came to Gilgal, so private altars were permitted. But you couldn't bring whatever you wanted on these private altars. Tan Rabbana, Kol Nida v'Nida ha'yukar b'bama. Anything that was brought voluntarily, like an oila or shlamim, Nida is if you said Hari Alai, Nida if you said Hari Zeh, could be brought on a bama. She'ein Nida v'Nida, but something that was obligatory, let's say you were chayav v'chatas or an asham, ain't carved b'bama, that can't be offered on a bama. Now, Rameir it's a big machlokes over here. Rameir is of the opinion that mincha unaziris, that a meal offering, and a naziris, if somebody says Hari Alai Nazir, craven babama, that could be offered on the bama. Now we'll see, there are a selection of karbanis that a Nazir has to bring. Is it only the oilos and the shlamim, or can he bring a chatas and a nazir tamei? Can he bring an ashim? We'll have to see. Divrei Meir. The chacham say no. They disagree both on the mincha. They hold that there's no mincha on the bama, and they disagree about the naziris because they hold that naziris is not a neder, because when you become a nazir, you have to bring the karbanas. So the Chachamim Amram like Karba Yachid Ela Eilis Shlamim Bovat. Now this is a little tricky over here. It's not so clear in the language of the Gemara. You need, as always, without Rashi, we would be finished. We would be lost. We would be sunk. Welcome, Danny. You should know your spot over here is missing. So you should know that.
Just got back from Staten Island.
Excuses. I just got back from Timbuktu. Listen, I'm glad you're here anyway, but you should know that you're
I actually had a shtickle fall today by Kiddush, Baruch Hashem. My foot got caught on a tablecloth. It was a tight area, and I was going sideways. My right foot got caught, and I didn't notice it when I put my left foot to go. And
Are you okay?
thank God, I'm a little bruised, but I landed on my right hip, which is the one I had the replacement hip from an auto accident 26 years ago.
Where did you daven?
I davened by the Young Israel in Eltonville.
Ah, you were in Eltonville.
That's where my son lives. Yeah.
Is Sid Stadler still there?
Is who?
Sid Stadler.
So his name is there. I met him once. He's in Israel now. He comes in once in a full moon.
Okay.
He lives in Israel.
He lives in it. So Sid Stadler was
Every so often.
Sid Stadler was one of the the originators of that shul.
Yes.
He's a drummer also, if I'm not mistaken.
What?
He plays music too.
He used to.
Used to, yeah.
Oh, he plays music too.
Very, very, very nice man. Very nice man.
Yes.
When the Rav said Timbuktu, you meant in Arizona, right?
It's good to see, Barry, that you pick up on all the very important nuances of the share.
No,
I know Barry takes copious notes of the share, so he wants to make sure which Timbuktu we were talking about. The Maisa is, I didn't yet welcome in everybody. We'll get to that. Waiting for more people to show up. I mean, only 27 people on a Motzei Shabbos is just not acceptable. But I do want to mention a Chaver Adaf that was very dear to me. It was his 15th yahrzeit today. His name was Chaim Oizer Preder. Chaim Oizer was a real Kiddush Hashem. He used to work very hard, and I remember he would dash in sometimes to the shir straight from work, and he was he asked very good questions. He really followed the Gemara, and if the Gemara changed its order in any time, he was right on top of it. Why did it say it this way, one way? Why did it say it the other way, the other way? We have an amazing Motzei Shabbos learning program in Staten Island. I maintained it for all the years that I was there. He ran it with incredible love, and it's known as the Chaim Oizer Motzei Shabbos Learning Program. So I want to remember him. I actually was very close to him. I actually closed his eyes when he passed away. I was there at the time of his Misa. Chaim Oizer ben Yitzchak, his neshama should have a great aliyah.
all his family was here for Shabbos. All his kids and the married grandkids, they were all here for Shabbos.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. The Gemara now tells us that turning now to the Bama G'dayla. See, we were talking about private altars in Gilgal, but there was a Bama G'dayla, a communal altar in Gilgal. So it's interesting that the Gemara doesn't really make it clear that it's switching. But Rabbi Yehuda Aimer, Kol Shat Sibur Vayochid Makrivin Ba'oil Moed Shebamidbar, whatever the community and an individual offered in the Mishkan, in the Midbar, Makrivin Ba'oil Moed Shebagilgal. They offered on the communal Bama in Gilgal. The that means that he held that even individuals were able to bring obligatory karbanos on the Bama in Gilgal. What is the difference? Ma bein oil moed midbar lebein oil moed Gilgal. So what was the difference between the oil moed and the midbar, the Mishkan and the midbar, and the Bama in Gilgal? Oil moed midbar loyhaya bamas mitaris. In the midbar, they weren't able to be private altars. Oil moed Gilgal, but the oil moed in Gilgal, hayu abamas mitaris. Now, ubamasay shibareish gagai, when you had in the Gilgal a private bama, you could only offer an oil and a shlamim. He held that mincha and naziris wasn't permitted. While the Chachamim welcome Michal Avram, the Chachamim say, Kol shat tzibur makrivim ba'oil moed shebamidbar, whatever the community offered in the Mishkan, makrivim ba'oil moed shebegilgal, but an interesting restriction. They held that you were only allowed to bring an obligation that had a fixed time. V'kan, in both cases, like karvu yachid, v'kan, like karvu yachid el oil v'shlam bilvad. In either place, that means both in Gilgal and both the communal carbon and the private bamas, they only brought an individual, only brought an oila and a shlamim. An individual, even on the communal bama in Gilgal, was not able to bring an ashim and a chatas. Obligatory karbanos he was not able to bring. Rab Shimon Aimer now comes along Rab Shimon, and Rab Shimon says a chiddush. There was a restriction even in the Mishkan and the communal bama in Gilgal for the community. What's the restriction for the community? Rab Shimon Amar af tzibur lo yekrivu el psachim. Even the community could only bring psachim or other chayvais shekvu lahen zman, or other obligations that have a fixed time. So, for example, they're able to bring the carbon tamid, they're able to bring the Musafin of Yom Tov and Reish Chodesh because they have a fixed time. But a carbon like the Parhelim Dovishal Tzibur, which is brought if the Bezdin made an erroneous decision, or the Sar Lavayda Zara, you wouldn't bring because that doesn't have a fixed time. So now the Gemara starts doing an analysis. There's a lot to analyze over here. My time at Rameir, that he holds that obligatory karbanas cannot be brought on a private altar. My time at Rameir, the Amakra loy sasun kichol asher anachnu oisim poyayim. You shouldn't do like we do here today. Rather, ish kalayasher be'enav. Every man could do what is yasher be'enav. So what does that mean? Amal lehen Moshe Yisrael ki ailisu la'aretz. When you come into the land, right? Because bamas in the midbar were not allowed. So we're talking about bamas, private altars in Gilgal. Ki ailisu la'aretz You can't do like we did by the Mishkan and bring obligatory karbanas. No. Yesharais takrivu. You could bring that which is yosher beinav, that which you decide, that you could decide upon. Decide upon is only voluntary. Yesharais takrivu, chayva islay sakrivu. You can't decide upon a chatas. It's only if you did a sin, if you did something guilty, you could bring a guilt offering. Says the Gemara, Rameir, however, says that menachas and naziris yesharas ninu. A mincha you could voluntarily bring a meal offering, and a nazir you could voluntarily declare hareini nazir. So he says that you could bring. Rabbanan say no. There was no mincha in Obama. That's a rule. Rabbanan ain't mincha b'Obama, and naziris is not voluntary. Because once you say Areini Nazir, then after the Naziris, you have to bring the Karbanas. Naziris, Chayvis Ninos, therefore that can't be brought. So now, the question is, so Rameir allows to bring Naziris, the Rabbanan don't. Maybe the Machlokes is only about one of the three Karbanas that a Nazir has to bring is a chatas. And if he becomes Tameh, he has to bring an Asher. So the Gemara proposes that maybe the Machlokes Rameh and Rabbanan is only on those obligatory offerings of a Nazir. Amar Shmuel Machlokes bechatas v'Asher. The chatas and the Asher component of Naziris. Aval ba'olos u'shlamim, but the oila and the shlamim, that's something that you bring voluntarily because you say Areini does it voluntarily. Vikarve, and that could be brought. However, the Gemara doesn't accept this. Moisiv Rabba asks, there are certain things that are not done on a Bama Katana. On a Bama Katana, there are certain things that are portions to a Kohen. So, Moisiv Rabba, Chaza v'Shaik, the breast and the shank, which goes to the Kohen from the Shlamim, Usrumas Lachmei Taida, and the 4 loaves from the 40 loaves of the Taida, Noyigin b'Bama Gedayla, they are given to a Kohen if it's done on the communal altar, Ve'ein Noyigin b'Bama Katana, but it's not Noyig b'Bama Katana. Now, by the carbon of the Nazir, the Shlam of the Nazir, there's also something that goes to the Kohen, the Zroya B'Shela. The ilu hazraya b'sheila shaira. It doesn't say that you don't give the cooked foreleg of the nazir to the kohen. I amrit b'shleima ba'olos u'shlamim pligi, that there's takamandi amar, that you don't do the oila of the shlamim of the nazir either on a bama katana, because it's all a chayiv, because once you say arein nazir, it's a chayiv. The reason why it doesn't say that you don't give the Zoya B'Shela of the Nazir is because Hamani Rabbanan that say that there isn't a carbon oila and shlamim on a private bava. Ela Yamrit B'Chatas V'Ashim Pligi, that they're only arguing about the Chatas and the Ashim of the Nazir, but oilus and shlamim everybody holds that you do give. So then it should say that on a private bama you don't give the Zraya B'Shela of the Nazir to the Kohen. Then Hamani. So the Gemara says you're right. We have to, because of this, change it. Ela Iyedmar Hachi Yedmar. Amashmuel Machlokes Ba'ola V'Shlamim. It's talking Machlokes about the oila and the shlamim, whether you could do on a private bama the oila and the shlamim of the Nazir, and therefore the Rabbanan say you can't, And therefore, that's why it omits the Zraya B'Shela, because it's not Nageya, because you don't bring Eila Shlamim of a Nazar on a private bum. But the sin offering and the guilt offering, that's definitely not considered Yesharis, voluntary, and that Divrei HaKol Chayvis Ninu, and it's not brought on a private bama, but like Karve. We'll move over to another part of the Brisa. Amamar, v'chachamim oimrim, kol shat tzibur makrivim ba'oil, whatever the community brought in the Mishkan, in the Midbar, so they brought on the Bama Gedayla in the in Gilgal, but only tzibur, an individual, doesn't bring an obligatory carbon even on the communal altar. It's a big chiddush. My time I had a Rabbana. What's the reason a Rabbana? Amakra ish hayosher be'enov yaseh, and we darshan ish yesharasu, only that which he could choose to do the likrov. Chayvis loy likrov, even on a communal bama. V'tzibur, but the community afilu chayvis likrov. Now Rabbi Yehuda disagrees. Rabbi Yehuda holds that on a public bama, even an individual could bring a obligatory carbon. So, for example, let's pick somebody. It's a hard choice. Barry, if he's Mechal Shabbos, right? So he could bring, according to Rabbi Yehuda, on a communal bama a chatas. Let's see it inside. Rabbi Yehuda Malaki Ksiv Hayasher Be'enav Hu Dichsiv. That's only on a private bama. Aval b'bama gedayla, on a public bama, afilu chayvus nami likrayv. But it says Elohaksiv ish. Since it says ish, doesn't that mean that when it comes to a private person, lav l'meimer de ish yashresu de likrayv, that a private person could only bring that which you could decide upon. Ha-chayvis loy likrayv. So he says, no, ish teaches me something else. Ish teaches me kiksiv ish lahachshir es hazar. That comes to tell me that on a private bama, you don't need kahuna. Could be ish. Could be anyone. Zar? Zar, we know that's good on a bama because it says mivizara kakayin es adam al mizbeach Hashem nafka. That the only time you need kayin is by the mizbeach Hashem, by the communal mizbeach. Says Gemara, you're right. But I might think that on a bama we should revert back to the old custom and insist on a bechar. Mao the same liboy kaddish becharis k'demei kara. Kamash Milan, that no, you don't need the bechar. It's ish. It could be anybody. Now, if you look at the different opinions, Chachamim hainu tadakama. The Chachamim is the same as the Rabbanan that argue on Reb Meir. They both say the same opinion that an individual could bring oilos and shlamim, and the community could bring even obligatory karbanas. What's the difference between them? Says the Gemara, Amra Papa Karvu Nesachim Bamidbar Ikabina. This is an old machlokes that we had several times in the Masechta, and that is, do they bring libations in the desert? One holds that they brought libations in the desert, and one holds that they didn't. Okay, we're going to just pause a moment over here, to turn over the channel.